I'm Ryan, this is my brother Daniel, and this is Roles in the Family, and today we're going to be talking about our favorite cooperative board games. We love cooperative board games. I mean, when I think back on our board gaming history and a lot of our most fun moments gaming, it's a lot of cooperative ones kind of rise to the top as some of our favorite experiences. So it's a topic that's near and dear to our heart. Yeah. Honestly, it was a hard one. We're going to cut off at our top 10. There are games I had to leave off that would have been nice to talk about. Maybe someday we'll do a top 20. But we'll include links to all these games down below if you want to check out some really good cooperative board games. And you can leave down in the comments below, what are your favorite cooperative board games? So there's some that we didn't represent that you feel should be represented. Imagine someone finds this video searching for a cooperative game.
Yeah.
You could be the one to give them.
You could change their life.
You could change their life.
Yeah.
It's true.
So that's what we're all about
here on Rolls in the Family. Daniel's going to kick us off with his number 10.
Yeah, here we go. We love cooperative games, man. Just the synergy between people. I'm a big cooperative fan, and that starts off with this game at my number 10. I actually don't own this one. This is one Ryan owns, and it is by far the quickest cooperative game on my list. This goes to Escape the Curse of the Temple, coming in at number 10, which me putting it at number 10 made me realize I really want to own this one.
Yeah.
Because, this one, 15 the track
10-minute soundtrack
is 10 minutes and you start it. And the fact that you have the soundtrack, it's not just a timer, but it adds kind of this ambiance,
totally.
That is super cool. But man, everyone's rolling the dice, going out and exploring, but then you got to get back in time. And I just find whenever we're playing this, there's so much group interaction, right? Of trying to help each other. If someone's stuck, you got to call for help and someone comes over to help. There's a lot of variety. We love games where the tiles are coming out randomly. That was something we were just raving about with, Clank Catacombs. And this game has just every single play is going to feel different with how the things come out, new challenges.
Particularly with the expansions.
Yes, that's true.
Because we do typically play with the Illusions expansion, the Quest expansion, that really beefs up the types of tiles and kind of the ways that the map can expand.
Yeah, so this one's, honestly, there's not a lot of games in the cooperative 10-minute, kind of sphere.
Yeah.
This one nails it. Definitely one that I want to get at some point.
Nice. Yeah, I think they only sell the big box version now. Which, you get all the expansion stuff. There's actually some expansion stuff I wish I had. It's am I really going to upgrade to the big box just to get the final?
Got to do it, Ryan.
We'll see. Well, Daniel, look at us coming right out of the gate with a direct
Oh my gosh. What if our whole list is a crossover?
Just the same list. Daniel accidentally opened the notes for my list.
Oh my gosh, that actually...
He wouldn't even realize
What's funny is they're really close to each other, so it wouldn't be that hard to do. Oh my gosh.
True. But Escape the Curse of the Temple, this is one that has just stayed up for me, despite it being one of the oldest ones on the list as far as how long it's been in the collection. But just that energy around the table as you're going off, and especially when you have more players, at least 4, because you end up with different groups, and so this group's going off and doing this, and this group's going off and doing this, and so there's kind of different interactions happening around the table. But then there are things somebody gets stuck, or somebody finds one of those rooms that it's we want as many people here as possible so we can hit the higher levels of how many gems we can put on it. And mix in all the expansion stuff. You've got illusion tiles that are going away. You've got those quest tiles that are an additional thing you need to do in this particular game. And it's great variety, and just the bang for your buck in 10 minutes is unmatched, with any game I have. And we've had sessions where we play it 3 times in a row, and the whole session lasted all of 45 minutes with a little bit of in between reset and stuff. And it feels like you did so much. It's we did 3 full games of this, and it still was shorter than a lot of other games. So yeah, this is one that just continues to deliver. I don't get it played quite as much as I used to, but the times I have gotten it to the table recently have further reminded me. I know we both kind of bounced off of Project Elite, which is a similar dice rolling cooperative fast game, and it honestly made us realize how much we like Escape.
Yeah.
Is, the way it comes out differently every time and in so much less time delivers such a big experience. So
this is one of the most efficient, delivers of enjoyment in a cooperative game. There is no fat on this game.
No
fat. Lean.
Yes. So there you go. Double endorsement for Escape the Curse of the Temple.
Love it. Moving to my number 9. This is, I'm looking at my list here, my only party game on the list. Which we have several good cooperative party games, but this one for me really rises to the top of a just cooperative experience. It's one that I think far exceeded our expectations when we first got it, and this is going to go to So Clover. Man, this one, it's you read the rule book and you're like, oh, this looks like it could be a pretty fun game, but until you start playing it, I think you don't realize how well it clicks,
and especially playing it with the right group. Yep. Like, I'm always a little hesitant because I have to remind myself that we are coming from the perspective of playing it with this consistent family group that we're so familiar. It really is the perfect kind of group for this game.
Yeah, and you have to making word connections, right? Like, there's people that don't like that. But man, if you have the right group, everyone first is working on their own little puzzle of their clover, trying to write, good clues. But I think the part of this game that we did not realize was going to be so fun for everyone, including the person whose clover is being viewed, is the guessing phase, and how funny and enjoyable it is of people because you're trying to really get in the head of the clue giver. Why did maybe they thought this, you're turning the cards around and positioning him, but maybe this, and I feel like almost every time just funny things as the clue giver. You're listening to this and you're just cracking up on the inside, and there's also good challenge in it, and it's man, when you get it on that first try, it's satisfying. I find it just nails both a good challenge, laughter, it just brings people together around each person kind of
and
their
it's
thinking and
cooperative,
stuff,
which makes it a little less pressure. And
for sure.
I mean, we talk a lot about how party games often fall into either the thinky side of party games or the laughing side of party games, and some of our favorites are those ones like So Clover that just find a way to be right in the middle.
Walks that line really well. So that is my number 9.
Nice. We do have a full review of So Clover. We could probably link that in a card above.
Right? I'm touching it, Ryan.
Yeah, probably somewhere up there. We don't remember which way we get flipped on the screen.
I know.
My number 9 is another game that has been in the collection for a long, long time. And I feel like this one and Escape, often whenever I'm doing my rankings, they always are just kind of in the same area. I must have similar feelings about them. But this is Dungeon Fighter. And Dungeon Fighter, and especially in recent years, we now have the big new 2nd edition, collector's edition, which for most people is not the right purchase for getting into Dungeon Fighter. I do recommend
we are not
second edition. The 2nd edition base sets, and you can expand it as you go. We were coming from having played the 1st edition a ton, had all the expansions.
We already knew we loved it.
And we already knew we loved it. So we splurged a little bit. But this is such a unique experience of, again, a cooperative game where you are dungeon crawling, but it's very lighthearted and funny. All the artwork and everything you're doing is very funny. But the way you fight the monsters in each room is by bouncing dice on the table and trying to land them on a target. It's very much a game that originated with what if we made a game around this funny, idea, and then just built everything around it. And you encounter enemies that make you have to do special shots and trick shots, and you get items. And it really is one that kind of bridges this cooperative dexterity, but also kind of a party game almost.
Yeah.
It's kind of almost like a gamer's party game. And while there's a lot going on, I've played it with people that normally wouldn't like games with that much going on because it's cooperative and I can manage the things that there's people that are just tell me when it's my turn and what kind of shot I need to do to try to hit it on there.
Yeah.
But such a pure fun mechanism of trying to bounce these dice and the things that happen and triggering your special abilities. And just the feeling around the table. You get this feeling, especially when it's a difficult shot, because you each get to try it. Like, as people fail, somebody else gets to like give it a go. And, you can have some really, really high moments in this game.
Yep.
With getting the perfect thing or triggering ability at the right time, or, kind of the most amazing thing of getting the bullseye and rolling the symbol, which is like an automatic kill of the enemy. And so, it's just one that's delivered for us so many times.
For sure.
And is in kind of a class of its own in this kind of cooperative Dexter. It's goofy. You got to go into it knowing the type of game you're getting into. But a very, very fun one that we've enjoyed, and that is Dungeon Fighter.
Yeah, I think a theme you might see on our top cooperative games is we love games that can deliver those high moments,
especially in a cooperative game, right? Because the feeling of sharing one of those high moments with a group is just, it's awesome. It's like part of why we play board games.
It's so true. So true. Very nice. Moving on to my number 8. This is one that is a sequel to a game that probably would have been on this list if not for this game, which really just took a game that we loved and made it even better. A game that is underrated in the board game community, I think we would say. This is Last Bastion. So Ryan and I owned Ghost Stories for a long time, played a ton of Ghost Stories. I mean, we really, really did.
It was one of the first cooperative games we got, actually.
And I think we didn't really consider Last Bastion at first because we loved Ghost Stories, and then we were interested in the White Moon expansion.
Yeah, I had the White Moon expansion.
And then it was actually after getting that expansion that we were kind of like, it
made the game a little longer and more complex.
Yeah.
And then it was like, well, maybe I'll just play with the base game. Well, if I'm going to just play with the base game, maybe I should check out this new
Last Bastion
edition.
And I'm so happy we did, because they really nailed, I think, what we're looking for in a little bit shorter, kind of hour and a half range.
It's really an hour or less.
Or maybe closer to hour. Yeah. But just that fun cooperative experience where each of you's Delta, random character that has, kind of their special power, and you're moving along this 3x3 kind of grid, trying to defend from, I forget what, I get all of them mixed up between Ghost Stories and Last Bastion, but they're the bad things that are coming.
Bad things are happening here.
But I mean, it's a very just kind of streamlined cooperative experience of you're moving and you're taking actions, random, card draws, something. I mean, we love just kind of the variety of
what's the opposition going to throw at us next?
Yeah, and it can create incredibly difficult situations. You can get wrecked in this game, but it also, creates puzzles that when you overcome them, it is just amazing. And that, again, this is a game that can really deliver some of those amazing moments of, if you do this and I step over here and do this, like, that's our only chance, but we have a chance, and we need the dice to go the right way, but putting ourselves in that position. It's interesting, Ryan. I know some people can look at a lot of probably cooperative games that have dice and not like it because of the luck, Whereas I think something we really enjoy is cooperative games where the strategy is positioning ourselves to give ourselves the best chance possible.
Yeah.
And ultimately,
it's a double-edged sword with luck and randomness and dice. By taking it out, you gain control over the strategic experience a little bit more. But by leaving it in, you get more exciting moments and kind of more breadth of what can happen.
Right.
And so people are going to have different preferences. I think we've definitely learned in a lot of these types of cooperative games, the highs that we get from some more randomness being in the system is just totally worth it for us.
Yeah, that might have been and again, this is, there's not a right, wrong. Everyone has a different preference. And this is probably why some people absolutely love a game like Spirit Island, where we were just not quite, it's still a good game, but one we weren't quite as high on. And I think part of it was in our cooperative experiences, we like a little bit more of there are the high that can be delivered in
there
the
aren't
randomness.
The same types of exciting moments in Spirit Island. It's more when you figure out a cool combo that you can do that's satisfying.
Which is cool.
But Spirit Island also doesn't really throw very many unexpected things at you. It's a very predictable,
And some people might love that.
I mean, a lot of people do. It's a very popular game.
It's true.
Nice. Last Bastion just missed my list. It was my number 11.
Oh.
My number 8 is a game that you owned first. I can't remember if I played it 1 or 2 times with you. Had a good time with it and found that in this category of like highly thematic, cooperative games, it kind of falls in a nice spot of being in between the something like maybe Last Bastion and something like, Ark Melter Tor, or these like really long epic ones. And this is Cthulhu Death May Die.
Mm-hmm.
And this is, a big CMON production, the publisher that does these giant Kickstarters with hundreds of pounds of plastic and so many expansions and getting people to buy more expansions than they'll ever play for these games that they haven't even played yet. But I digress.
Oh, all right. That sounds like a rant.
The reality is they do make some pretty fun games.
They do. Yeah.
And while I don't need everything that exists for Cthulhu Death May Die, I do love the system and how you combine a scenario with an Elder One and get kind of this unique kind of combination scenario, and then you get your different player powers. And while being a big presence on the table, it's a very streamlined and simple game. The actions you can take, there's not a lot of rules to remember. It's not a lot of I need to go look in the rule book. You can get new players up and running pretty quick, and it just kind of focuses on the fun of moving around on a map, trying to figure out how we're going to do this objective while there's these big monsters that we're dealing with. Get to roll a lot of dice and have the fun of, as you get more insane, which is getting you closer to getting knocked out, you actually gain more and more powers and abilities and get to roll more dice. And so there's just a lot of kind of pure fun design decisions in this that it just comes together really well and gives me that type of experience, but it's in more of like a 90-minute package, or maybe even we've had games that are a little faster than that. So it's one I haven't played a ton, but I've really enjoyed my plays so far. And I'm glad expansion content does exist because, once I finish playing all the things in the first box, I wouldn't mind getting the season 2 just to have more scenarios to mix and match.
Yeah.
But it's nice to be able to, hopefully it's available that, I can pick it up as I go.
But even if you don't, like I've played combinations that I've played. Like, it's not like, you play a combination once and you can't play it again. Like, that's the cool thing. And that I was really happy about is that it wasn't so story narrative driven that it's like, I'm not going to want to play that again because it rides
there's a lot
so
of
much
variance within.
Yeah.
And even if you were like, I'm going to do every combination, I think there's 2 Elder Ones and 6 scenarios in the box. That gets you 12. At least 12 games before you have to repeat anything.
For sure.
And then you add just 1 Elder One. You just add 1 expansion that adds another 6 scenarios, and you really are...
You're just multiplying. Exponential.
It's multiplication at work.
Oh my gosh.
I'm not sure it's exponential, but it is multiplication.
It's exponential. Very nice, Ryan. My number 7 is a game that has already been mentioned by you. So I'm just going to say it. Dungeon Fighter. This is such a great game in terms of what it just delivers an experience unlike anything else that we have. I think something we like dexterity games as well. And I think something that's really fun about dexterity elements is it just simulates like, that opportunity for an amazing, thing. Like, I think about our love of like growing up and like doing shots on our little basketball.
I was going to say, even just our love of sports. Because that's so much it really does
tap into that. Yeah. Our love of exciting moments.
The pressure of the moment of like, you have to do this is, it's
and you get better at it the more you play and whatnot. But man, like, I think about like a moment when someone does a under the leg shot, it goes and it lands on a bullseye with the symbol and it's an auto kill and everyone's just like, ah! You know what I mean? Like, just what other games can have that happen? That type of moment, where you are just beside yourself in just shock and amazement, of what happened. There's very little games that allow for that kind of high, and this one just has that. Now it has some. You can be terrible at the game too, and that I'm sure is not not super fun, but you can get better at it. So
And it's kind of got that feel almost like kind of like a roguelike, something like Slay the Spire, where you're like progressing through it. And like when you have a battle where you're people are getting knocked out, only one person has to survive. And if they survive, everybody comes back with like a little bit less health. Yeah. So it's this feeling of like, if we could just get through this, like we can keep going. Yep. And it's definitely a very fun experience. Let's see. Number 7. My number 7 is another CMON giant overdone
Ryan,
Kickstarter game.
I think Ryan loves CMON and Kickstarters.
I'm glad it all exists, because the reality is there's some games I really enjoy that they've put out. But it's good to practice some self-control and not get everything for it. Now, did I practice self-control on this? Not initially, but since they've done additional seasons, I would say I have. This is Marvel United. And I have a lot for Marvel United. I have all of the first series and all of the X-Men series, which is more than you ever need. That said, this is a game that has gotten played and played. I don't know where I'm at now. It's probably like 70 something plays over 3 years or what it's been. It's now a game that my son really enjoys, and I see only becoming better with kids. This is definitely one on the list that's really good across like adults and kids. The Marvel theme is one that is going to appeal to a lot of people. It's done in kind of a chibi cutesy style. But being able to just, everybody gets a hero with their own unique deck. You throw out 6 random locations, you pick a villain. It's such a plug and play system. And there's like real meaningful variety within that plug and play. Like a lot of the heroes feel somewhat similar, but you do have special cards in the distribution of your stuff that gives you a little bit of flavor. The villains make it feel pretty different depending on the villain you're using, with like how you're going to win, or they might do something completely different. And it just all comes together in a package that plays usually in a half hour or less. And so it's so fun I've gotten to experience so much of the variety. There's games where it's like, this game has so much variety. It also takes 3 hours to play, so it gets played once or twice a year. Like,
that's a great point.
I'm never going to know if I'm never going to experience that variety.
Right.
Where I am doing that with Marvel United. And so it is one that I'm really glad I have. I'm glad I have a bunch of stuff for it. It's got a really good core mechanism of cooperation. The whole, I play a card, but I also get to use the actions on the previous player's card, because it makes every decision is a team decision of like, okay, this is what I want to do, but like, does that help you? Oh, you really need a move because you're not going to be able to move otherwise. Well, maybe I could do this. So it really facilitates kind of a good cooperative feel, and has become my go-to kind of accessible gateway cooperative game that I'm not getting tired of. Like, I'm just as happy to play it now so many plays later. So there you go. Marvel United, don't buy everything for it.
Well, it is interesting what you were mentioning there, because I think with all sorts of Kickstarters, right, they make tons of stretch goals and it's variety, right? And we love variety, and so it's tempting, right? And it's like you want to get everything, but this realization that if the game's a 2-3 hour game, that variety
we're not kids anymore. We can't just sit around all day and play
it's
all
like
these.
Way less enticing, because it's like I'm never even gonna, whereas a game like this, it's like, oh, that's actually really valuable. So
and there's definitely games that I see all the stuff that they put out for, and I'm like, you would have to make this your lifestyle game. Like, this is your game and you're not playing other games to really use all this. And there probably are people that do that, but I know there's also a lot of people that are, they're waiting on 6 of these games to come from Kickstarter, and it's like, okay, when are you going to play all this?
You have to think about how much time do I have, and do I?
Time
is this
the more limiting resource for us right now.
That's true.
It's tricky.
Okay, Ryan. We're gonna move over to my number 6, another game that has already been mentioned. One that I got first, and man, it just hit so well. And this is Cthulhu: Death May Die. You were talking about it, Ryan. In some ways, this game feels like, how I was talking about Escape being like so lean. This is like Escape for big, heavy games, in that it is just so streamlined. And
like, if you saw a screenshot of it, you would assume the rule set's going to be a lot heavier or more complex than it actually is.
But it really is. It's easy to teach. The actions are pretty simple, and yet the strategy around kind of what each of you are doing and working together is still really interesting, especially with each of the scenarios having kind of some different, objectives and whatnot. I love the progression of characters. Like, it's so fun how you can really, because you're not going to be able to max your character in every category. And, as you get more insane, that whole tension of I want to go more insane.
Early in the game, you're just like, let me go into this dangerous situation because I'll get the power of my ability.
That is such a fun, just mechanism. And so you're upgrading your character, but every game you can do it differently and lean into one of the three different skills. I love if you're on a space with no monsters, you get to draw a card is thematically connected to the scenario. So there's some interesting, and
they sometimes give you items, or they might do something else.
Even ones that depend on one another. So this one's if you have this thing already or met this person, get this. And so I find that the thematic tie-in is really fun without it being too reliant upon the story and surprises. And so and that just leads to an incredible amount of replayability. This one has just been a ton of fun. I've almost played through. I'm getting close. Actually, that's not true because you guys gave me
another Elder one.
Yeah, I think I have now 4 Elder ones in total. And so I've played almost through all the base stuff, but I need to add those in. And that value proposition of add an Elder one, add an episode, and it adds to every combination is just so great. So great.
It is.
So really one that I've loved. That's Cthulhu Death May Die.
Yeah. I love how they streamlined the movement in the game where it's monsters just follow you.
Oh, I know.
So there's so much of hey, I'll just run through here and clear you a path. Just getting everybody to follow me. It's so simple. You don't have to remember anything, but there's real kind of strategic decisions that you can do out of that. My number 6, I think is pretty hard to get these days. I don't know that they sell it directly anymore, which is too bad because it is just an excellent cooperative game. It's one that we've had so much fun playing, gets often a lot of laughs, and this is Mechs versus Minions. And Mechs vs. Minions, everybody's got their mech. It's in kind of the League of Legends universe because it's actually Riot Games that made this game. Apparently, they're big board game fans. It's kind of a passion project. But you're programming your little mech, and every turn you get to draft new cards and put them in, and then you're executing your line, and you're powering up certain things, but everything you've already played continues to be part of your line. So you got to kind of work with what you got, and you're trying to all work together with your mechs around the map to achieve some objective. You might be trying to tug this bomb to the end of the thing or whatever, but there's all these tiny minions spawning everywhere, and I think the game comes with 100 plus of them, and I've had them all on the board at one time before. But you're just knocking them out like crazy, and it is just such a so one, it's got the satisfying progression, right? Because you keep building up your line, and it's getting more and more powerful how it's going, what you're going to be able to accomplish. But then it's also funny because you can't change I'm turning right and doing this. Well, that's going to happen again next turn. How can I work with that to, so you're often doing kind of goofy ways to accomplish some task because it's what worked for you. Well, then when you get hurt, the way you get hurt in this game is you often get a random thing slotted into your thing that's a malfunction, which is just, people almost like getting hurt in this game just because it's so funny and it's fun to work with what you get. And, the presentation is off the charts with just the components. Yeah. And there's, I think, 10 different scenarios. I still, years and years later, I've probably had this for almost a decade at this point. I still haven't played all the scenarios. I have sealed envelopes in there because they're so replayable. And so oftentimes if I'm playing with new people, I still play the new ones. And occasionally if we get a group together that's played before, we'll be like, oh, let's open another one. Yeah. So that's honestly fun that I still can have that experience of opening a new...
again, it's an example of... If we're playing Mechs versus Minions every single weekend, okay, maybe we would eventually get tired of the fact that there's 10.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? But we're not.
And they're so replayable if you're not in it. I probably am going to play this somewhere from 1 to 3 times a year at least in right now. Now, what's going to happen is someday my kids are going to like it, and that's when it's going to get hammered. Because that's what happens with kids is they find their favorite game and then you play it. But yeah, it's perfect for that. Daniel was fortunate to finally find a secondhand copy to have his own copy of it.
Shout out.
So yeah, I recommend it with sadness that I can't, you can't easily get this for, anything but astronomical prices.
Yeah,
but
this is is one to keep your eye out on. On the old Facebook Marketplace or secondhand market, because it's a gem. So much so that it is my number 5. Yeah,
Do you like when I just always say every game before you get to talk about it? So
I do.
Remember.
Yep. That's how we plan things around here. Yeah, it's amazing. I think what's fun about this, and I think it's a little bit. I think about with Foundations of Rome, you got that. And one of the things you love about it is that you have this big box that with this incredible presentation that you can play with. It's a very accessible game.
Yeah.
And I think Mechs vs. Minions kind of does that as well.
Totally.
Where, we had a couple that we were had over and they've played some games and stuff, but wanted
Daniel's
something
pulling out the
Well,
chest.
I know they're like, what are we getting into? Is this TI4,
Yeah.
And then, it's this huge box, incredible presentation, looks kind of intimidating on the surface.
Yeah.
And then you start playing, you're like, oh, this is super streamlined, simple, the rule set and whatnot. And like you said, it is a borderline party game with how it feels while you're playing. Because man, there's just there's many
been a
funny
couple
moments.
Times. This game's probably in my top 5 games that have made me laugh the hardest, out loud. Yeah. Which is funny because the other games in that category are more party games or whatever. But I will never forget the time that the mission, we all had to get to the end row in it to finish the mission. We'd already done whatever objective. And every turn, somebody would have something happen, that everybody else is there and somebody would get out.
Yeah.
And then somebody else would. And we ended up losing after 5 rounds of trying to shuffle and it just, we were losing it. It was so funny.
Right. So that one it's so good. And it just, nails it across the board from presentation to accessibility to replayability. Man, we've really loved that one. So that's my number 5.
Number 5. My number 5 has been in the collection for a very long time. I actually have another game that's in this style of games, which the style would be a living card game from Fantasy Flight Games. This is the one that I've played by far the most, and that is Lord of the Rings, the card game. I have Arkham Horror, the card game. I've done a little solo campaign of it, but I still have just not played it to the point where it's going to be on a list like this. But I know it has the potential. I know the potential of it. So someday maybe. But I have played a lot of Lord of the Rings, the card game. It's one of my most played games. I got into it back when it first came out. I didn't get really into it though. I wasn't getting every pack. It's kind of the thing we were talking about before. I'm glad the expansions exist because when I do want something new, I can get something new, but I don't need all this stuff for it. But I've really enjoyed it as a 2-player game. Lord of the Rings, you can build these different decks and then you pick a quest and you're going on this quest and strategically trying to make your way through it. So there's just a lot of variety in the types of decks you can build, the types of quests that you go on. There's now more of a campaign element with some of the newer stuff. I've picked up now, I've done some of the Hobbit sets, but I now have the first one of the actual Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship of the Ring. Because I do want to just make sure I have those ones. Because even if, it's not going to get played right now, I know it will someday. But yeah, it's one I just love it scratches that itch for me is really what it is. I do enjoy that deck building aspect and being able to do it in a cooperative game where you can kind of build 2 decks that work well together. Yeah. But then I don't need to be doing that all the time. Once I have the deck set, I can just pull it off the shelf and get it played. Right. Have played it solo a little bit more in recent years. 2-handed solo.
2-handed. Okay. I was wondering,
which is a little bit of a brain burn and a lot on the table, but you lose a lot of the fun of the interactions in the game and kind of the variety of what can come up. Because each round you draw cards equal to the number of players, so having 2 cards come out, there's just a lot more that can happen. Right. So I definitely prefer it that way. But But yeah, it's one that I haven't gotten tired of after, almost 200 plays and
Yeah, you've played the heck out of that one. Yeah, and it's one that I'm just was never super interested in I'm not a huge Lord of the Rings fan, and so the theme.
That's the understatement of the century.
Wow. Okay, right.
He's not a huge Lord of the Rings. He also just doesn't even know what happens in Lord of the Rings.
That's not true. I've seen the movies. Okay. So I'm not a huge fan of the IP, but there's a different game that Ryan has mentioned that does have an IP that I am interested in, and this goes to my number 4, Arkham Horror.
Wow. I'm giving you segues.
You are just Ryan. We coordinated this video so well. This feels, as you were talking, a little high because I
actually thought maybe it was even going to be higher for you. This is a hot one for you
well,
right now.
I can only be so high when you've only played the opening 3 scenario campaign. So somewhat this is up here based off the potential of where this can go. But I just recently got Dunwich Legacy and Path to Carcosa. I think in 2 days I'm starting Dunwich Legacy. We'll start that campaign. But man, like you were saying, this is really just hitting exact. Like I've never gotten into a collectible card game. And
just like that deck building.
The deck building, but also the scenarios are. They're so thematic and fun. Like, I don't know, just as even the opening one, which I know people are saying it's almost like a demo, but like even that you could just like imagine what's happening and it's just it's so fun, the story that's going on top of just the fun mechanics of a solid card game of you have this deck and knowing what's in your deck and how are you gonna set yourself up for to try to play your deck the best way possible and your 2 decks working together. We had a ton of fun even just in the opening the beginning campaign, and so now Dunwich Legacy is really the first kind of big, I think it's like 8 missions or whatnot campaign, and it's you got upgrading and whatnot. I'm still so new to like deck building, so like I don't even know. I've been reading stuff. There's a whole websites of people that have just like decks out there.
That's the thing is, if you wanted to get in this game and you're like, I don't really like deck building, you can just go look up a deck. Like say what things you have. You'll be able to find a deck,
find a good deck,
and just put it together.
And there's almost part of me that like. Kind of, I don't know. It's so funny. Like, I'm sure I could like deck building, but there's almost part of me that just wants to like, just give me a random deck and I'll just figure it out. Figure it out as I go. Yeah, I guess that's Keyforge. But man, I am super excited for this one and where it's going to go, and the cooperative working together on how you're going to advance the mystery and deal with the monsters and all of that is a ton of fun, similar to what you love about Lord of the Rings, the card game. Just a much better IP.
Well, tune in 3+ years when we do this list again to see if how Arkham Horror moved for Daniel as you got the chance to play.
That will be interesting. Yeah.
My number 4, as we get up the list here, we definitely see things skewing towards personal preference here, which is that my favorite games in this category are getting a little bigger, a little more complex. But man, do they deliver just some really fun cooperative experiences. This is one of the newer ones, one of the harder ones to learn. That's true of a couple up here, but this is Too Many Bones. And Too Many Bones is kind of a wild game of these Gearlock characters that are completely built out in their own unique way with 16 unique dice that have like upgrading tree paths to upgrading them, so you can kind of do different builds with the same character and have giant sheets of how to play that character. It's a lot of information. This is not a game to go into like, oh, we'll learn as we go, as Daniel and I learned the first time we played it. I even came pretty prepared actually for that first game, and it still didn't go very well. But I mean, there's really good videos online where you can literally watch like a half-hour plus video on just one of the gear locks of here's how it works, which I highly recommend. And so there's a lot of upfront you're putting into this game to be able to like have the experience. But man, it is really fun. Like you're doing these different scenarios like on each day. I don't know what they scenario or just like events that are happening. And a lot of them are a combat that's going to happen out on this 4x4 grid. And so you get to put your characters out, but then there's going to be enemies that are drawn. And so it's always kind of like randomly generated what it is you're fighting against.
Yep.
And then it becomes this tactical game on the map that's driven by your dice build, where every round, whatever your dexterity is, that's how many dice you can gather, or you can sacrifice dexterity to move. So the more you move, the fewer dice you're going to get to pool. And you pick what dice you want to pool. Like, do I want to pull attack and defense dice up to those stats, or do I pool some of the ones that I've started custom building? Because you start acquire some of those custom dice. So you might have somebody that has like healing stuff, or like I was playing the bomber character that I can't remember her name, that like is trying to make bombs as she goes. So she's trying to like roll parts so that she can build bombs, so that she has other special dice that use those bombs to do powerful effects. And so there's a lot of this going on as you're kind of feeding into this tactical battle, and there's all these different statuses and abilities that just really create a rich sandbox for these little tactical puzzles. And it's just a lot of fun. I mean, that's really the end of it. It's a long game. These scenarios, often it's going to be 2 to 4 hours.
That's a wide range.
Well, it depends on what tyrant you play, because a lot of them are longer.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's fun to build the progression of building up your character over the whole thing, and then working together. 2-player and 3-player are probably best. It is 3-player runs long. It is fun to have 3 different people in there, though. Just you get a little bit more flexibility with how you can approach things. Definitely not a game. This is a hard game to recommend to most people, because, like I said, the barrier is pretty high. It's expensive. The component quality is very good, but it is expensive. It's getting closer to like one of those lifestyle games where like you're gonna need to play this enough that like you don't, because even if you play it once a year, you're gonna come back and be like, I don't remember how this gear lock works. I don't remember how this, and it's gonna be a lot of work to get that session. But if you can get it played somewhat regularly, that it keeps it in your brain, there really isn't much like it, and kind of gives me a big epic co-op experience. So very much enjoyed Too Many Bones.
Yeah, that's a good one. It did not make my list. Partially,
doesn't surprise me.
I still am. I've only played it a couple times. First play was rough, so it's still. I feel like I'm just still in the like landing on kind of my view of it.
Honestly, it's going to be one of those games that unless you buy it, it's going to be hard to make the case for you continuing to play it the once or twice a year that we get together.
Because I would agree. When I came back and played it, I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know what any of these symbols do and stuff like that. Also, have been just, peeking around at the old Elder Scrolls.
I did tell you about that one.
Kind of Too Many Bones sequel in some ways, which is, I don't know, there's some enticing stuff there too. So we'll see where I land. But I agree, the system is pretty incredible. Speaking, Ryan, of an incredible system, my number 3. This was a game that I played for the first time a couple months ago, and I almost considered, is this my number 1? And that's how great it was. This goes to Slay the Spire.
Wow.
Ryan, this was such a great cooperative game.
Yeah.
I mean, we both enjoy Slay the Spire, the video game, and my goodness, having it in a cooperative format on a table in a board game, they did an incredible job. The synergy of working together is just beautiful. The upgrading, oh my goodness, it's just upgrade and up, like you're just over and over getting this dopamine rush of fun upgrading, whether that's drawing 3 cards from the top of your custom upgrade deck. Are you kidding
Specific
me?
to your character.
Like, what? That is so cool. And so you're doing that, you're getting relics that are that change how you play things, and it's just the way they did it all is so well designed, and it leads to just an experience where there's just a ton, you're focused on your own character, but there's also back and forth, like, hey, can you do this, and helping each other. The variability just off the charts. this game, man,
It's
like
fantastic.
it's a must-have for me. I don't own it yet. I will someday, because it is one of the best cooperative experiences I've had, and probably the only reason it isn't even higher is just I haven't played it enough. And
yeah, it's another one in that category of like, do a big epic co-op experience with one or two other people and, go through a long progression. But man, it's good stuff.
It's good stuff.
Cool. My number 3 is a bit of a classic for us in this category. It's one of the first ones that comes to mind of games that has just delivered so many memories over the years. And actually, its predecessor also delivered a lot of memories. This is Eldritch Horror. So for context, we had Arkham Horror 2nd Edition and played it 50 plus times, which you have to understand is a 3+ hour game. This is back in the golden days of we're kids still at home and like, what do we do all day? We just play board games.
That's all we did.
And so we played Arkham Horror a lot. Then ended up getting Eldritch Horror, which we prefer for a variety of reasons. Have since played that a lot. I'm probably coming up on 40 plays or something of Eldritch. And just, it's because some of these other games, like Too Many Bones or some of these, it's kind of more of like me and another person. Like it's going to get just way too long and complicated if it's with more. Eldritch is more like you get to experience it with like a group of 4, maybe 5.
Yeah.
And so you're getting a bit more of a shared group experience with this one. And it's in this kind of just epic sandbox of we're going around the whole world trying to solve these mysteries and fight monsters to, work towards beating this ancient one that's breathing down our neck with all kinds of, different horrible things depending on which one you're playing. And there's so much that can happen in this game. I mean, that's, I think for us, so much of the draw of the game is like every time you sit down to play it, there's just so much opportunity for what could happen this time. People will lament the randomness in this game because there's random decks and everything is roll to resolve and everything. But it creates so much opportunity for exciting things to happen. And we definitely feel like the strategy is still there. We feel we get to make good strategic decisions. Now, a lot of it's just setting up the best odds for us to do well. But it really does satisfy for us that like working together strategically to solve problems while also getting the excitement of the randomization and what's going to happen. So yeah, I have all the content for it, all the expansions and stuff, which is great for that variety. And I've gotten it slowly over time as the game's been played a lot. It's one of the games I feel like I've done like the best job of expanding as it's been played.
Good job, Ryan.
It wasn't like I just got it all up front.
Yeah.
And it's one that I just know is going to keep getting to the table. It's been a group favorite for a long time. So many exciting highs. There's been some lows. You get the occasional game of this that just either you could have it be way too easy. It's not usually the case, but I have had a few games where it's like, well, we kind of wish that had been harder. It would have been more fun. And then you have the games that get absolutely beaten to the ground, and you're like, man, there was not a glimpse of hope at any point during that, and like to the point where it like wasn't even that fun.
Yeah.
But it's the price we pay for the experiences that you can get out of this game.
Yeah.
And it remains one of our favorites.
Yeah. No, I agree with that, Ryan. My number 2 is not a cooperative game. Except it is.
No.
It was not originally a cooperative game with how we first played it, but you can play it cooperatively, and boy, we will never go back. This is Mage Knight. Yeah, Ryan, I remember when we played it competitively, and it was like, this is it's a good game. It's long. It's like, okay, and it was like, I think we liked it. When we shifted to cooperative in this game, it just transformed.
Breathed new life into this game.
Because now, you're able to be very, it is a long game. There's a lot of downtime, each person's turn and stuff. And in a competitive game, you
you're just waiting for your
own turn, where now you're more invested in the team and you get excited when someone else something good so I feel like that's just a transformative thing in that experience. But man, this game, the adventure, the exploration, there's no game where this feeling at the start of I'm going off on my own. Like I'm going off on my own story, not a narrative, but just like to explore and upgrade and find things and what's going to happen this time.
And then it's 2 minutes later. Man, it is so hard to move anywhere in this game.
Yeah, it's true. It's very true.
Everything feels like such hard work.
I know, but you're going out, and then it's all going to lead towards this finale at the end, which I love that the game just always sets up for a big finish. Every single way
come together to do this last siege attack on the castle.
Bring the fruits of your labor, and whether that's
get to see who the slacker in the group is. Who
the slacker was. But man, the card upgrades in this game, they are so powerful and just. The arc of the game, it's just an incredible upgrade system. And so from the start to the finish, you feel like you have transformed into a beast. And that is just such a fun thing, and such a fun thing to do in a cooperative and shared environment. So I truly can't imagine playing this cooperative or playing this this competitive. It is an incredible.
Yeah, competitive inevitably will get to the point where you see the person that's ahead, and it's it snowballs. If they're doing well already, they're even more well positioned to continue doing well.
I prefer the snowball to be on
part
my
of the
team.
Yes. It's true. My number 2 is also Mage Knight.
There we go.
It is one that we have really just had great times over the years. It's become almost exclusively a 2-player co-op game just because it's so long.
Mm-hmm.
I would play it with 3 if everybody's played before. The scenario doesn't come up very often. But yeah, I don't know that any game gives quite as much of a start to finish progression of how much more powerful I got in one session. It isn't a campaign.
Right.
And that is just a beautiful thing. And it's, good variety depending on what character you are. You have those different upgrade titles that are specific to that character. But the order the advanced actions come out, or the spells, the shuffling of those decks so pushes you in different directions than, you would otherwise go. And so every game really is unique. I love design decisions here. When you get a new card, you get to put it on the top of your deck. Whereas every other deck builder, you wait for it to shuffle in your discard pile.
Yeah.
Here it's I literally am going to get to use this next turn. And in fact, there's times where when I'm buying a card where I'm ooh, I love that one, but that one would be perfect for my next turn.
Yeah.
And I love that decision and being able to set that up.
Good.
And the game is so about what's the hardest thing I can do right now without dying? Because the harder that thing I do, the more experience I'm going to get, the more rewards I'm going to get. And I need to, because I need to get as strong as possible so that we're able to do this thing at the end. But I also don't want to completely die right now.
Your hand's just full of wounds.
Which dying in this game, it's not like you're knocked out. It's just you have to deal with all these wounds clogging your deck and maybe take a full turn off to rest. This is a game that, while we so highly recommend it, it's a painful one to learn from the rule book. If you go out and get this game on our recommendation, I highly recommend. I know there's really good online videos and stuff for learning this game. I would go there first and then use the rule book as once you're familiar with it. But man, it's lasted. It came out a long time ago, and it's still often talked about as one of the best in kind of this category, often by people playing it solo, actually. But
and
we really enjoy it co-op.
And we have the Ultimate Edition, which is
Ultimate
Edition, which we have thoroughly enjoyed. With
there's some nice expansion
content in there.
Terrible box, but
terrible box, content. Correct. Okay, Ryan, I think I'm seeing how this is going to settle here.
We either flip-flopped or there's a big surprise.
That's true. This one, I feel like the reason this is my number 1 is it's just the culmination of history and this game, just like you mentioned, when I think of cooperative games, best ones, this is where my mind goes first. Yeah. And it's because of the tons and tons of great memories that this game has given. This is going to Eldritch Horror. This game, again, leaning at what I love so much in cooperative games is when it has that beautiful balance of both personal ownership. Like I've got like I don't want to just, no one wants to be just being told what to do, right?
Yeah.
I want to feel like I have my person and I'm upgrading, and this game has that. You don't, there's too much to be managing what another person's character, and so you really feel that. But there is so much synergy in the discussions around what we're gonna do, and obviously you kind of need the right group for that. But we've had when we have our perfect group for this game, man, it is just incredible. The things that'll come up, because it is, like you mentioned, it's a sandbox that you walk into and you're like, what is going to happen this time? And you truly do not know. And so
often that sandbox is like horrible things that you're like, how are we going to, that so many times is that feeling in this game, but so many times you figure out a way to stay alive and under dire circumstances.
Yeah, and I think that's something we love in cooperative games, is this just survive, like whatever we can do to keep us having a chance. Yeah. And this game gives you opportunities for that. The expansion content just adds more and more incredible variety. Man, I have so many memories. There's a reason, Ryan, whenever we have a larger chunk of time for a game night, what's the game that maybe even to your chagrin is always recommended? It's Eldritch Horror.
It's definitely been a group favorite. Like a lot of people in our core group really enjoy this game.
It can have some duds, it can have some misses, and yet I want to keep playing it. And that says something about how great that game is. So that is my number one.
Very nice. Number one game. My number one, it may feel a little Cult of the New.
I know. This is honestly shocking, Ryan.
I had to be honest about kind of how I'm feeling right now.
This is amazing.
With Cooperative Games.
I feel so great.
And Slay the Spire, the board game, is just hitting, man.
Wow, Ryan.
I've played it more than you. I've had several other 2-player games. I've played several solo games. And I probably like the video game more than you do.
That's correct.
Or have played it more.
You've played it more, yeah.
But it gives me a similar feeling to playing a game like Mage Knight or Too Many Bones, where me and just one or two other people are going to go through this long thing together. But just the pacing of it is so tight with how often you're upgrading and how often you're doing something. And the upgrading is so meaningful in how it changes what you're capable of and the type of build you're going into. Like, it's the type of game, and this is very true of the video game as well, when you get further into it, you feel the uniqueness of your build. It just isn't just like, I've got a lot of good things. Yeah. And like, oh, I've got a lot of powerful things. It's like, no, I'm trying to do something here. I'm like leaning into this and like working this in a way to make it work better. And yeah, I mean, it takes so many of the strengths of the video game and just translates them like near perfectly into a tabletop experience. Some of the things, like you were saying, your character has a completely unique deck and completely unique way they work. Like, these 4 different characters are more different than like almost any other board game I can think of as far as getting an asymmetric character. Not so much asymmetric. It's not like something like Root where like, oh, like I'm playing almost a different game over here. But like, your card pool is unique to you. Yeah. Like, all your deck building is happening within a card pool that was designed for this character and this character's specific abilities that they have. And so you're able to do some pretty cool stuff. And there's very, very varied builds within the same character. You can play the same character many, many times and do completely different things. You add in that, as we've been playing it here, we're kind of unlocking some of the content in the box and adding it in, cards for different characters or cards that are going to be out of the shop and things like that. I'll play a 3-hour game of it and feel like I could just like play it again. I mean, when comparing it to like Mage Knight and Too Many Bones, like where I'm at right now,
Yeah.
it feels like it's edging it out in my desire to want to play it. And so this will be an interesting one to see, because obviously Mage Knight, I mean, it's impressive. It's at number 2 after I've had Mage Knight for over 10 years. Too Many Bones is pretty new. But like, will Slay the Spire settle? Will it kind of hold strong? But man, it's hot right now.
Wow.
And,
I gave you your favorite cooperative
look at that.
game.
Yes, that was a birthday gift this last year.
Look
Daniel feels so validated here on this video. But these videos are a snapshot in time, and this is a snapshot, at least for right now, of our favorite cooperative games of all time. Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked this video, there is a non-zero chance you'll like some of these other videos too. We like games that aren't cooperative too. Sometimes we like beating up on each other. You can check out a few of those here on the channel, or check out the games talked about below, and we will see you in the next one.